I switch seats? I hate being
You're much more photogenic than I am.
Oh, heavens, that's not even close to being true.
Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. We're going to call this meeting to order. First thing on the agenda tonight is an invocation by the Reverend Julie Thompson of First Presbyterian Church of Lynn Haven, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Good evening, ma'am.
I invite you to pray with me. Let us pray. Almighty God, we come before you today with humble hearts as we gather for this city council meeting. We thank you for the commitment of time and energy that each person here has made to be present here today. We ask for your guidance and wisdom for each council member as they make decisions that impact our community. Give them clear thinking, compassion for their constituents, and the courage to act justly. Help them to make decisions that show a commitment to the common good, and surround us all with your peace as we do what we can to uplift and empower our fellow citizens and create a brighter future for all. We ask for your blessing on this meeting, that it may be productive and guided by your grace. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Reverend Thompson. We appreciate you tonight. All right. Next up on the agenda, additions, deletions, and modifications. So I think this would be the best place for us to go ahead and approve Commissioner Tender dialing in by phone and participating tonight. She's under the weather, so she's dialed in with us tonight versus in person. Any issues or concerns with that? Okay, good deal. Well, if that's the case, can I get a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you, gentlemen. I have a motion and a second. Is there any public commentary regarding us allowing Commissioner Tender to participate via phone tonight? Hearing none. City Manager, can you call the roll?
Commissioner Ward?
Yes.
Commissioner Perno?
Yes.
Commissioner Peebles?
Yes.
Commissioner Tender? Yes. Mayor Lowry?
Yes, the ayes have it. Thank you for that. All right, next we have a couple of proclamations up. First, Child Abuse Prevention Month. Proclamation. Whereas Florida is committed to protecting its most vulnerable and empowering our children to reach their full potential and lead healthy lives, and whereas each of Lynn Haven's children deserves a safe, healthy, and happy home where they are developmentally and educationally on a path for success, and whereas child abuse, neglect, and other adverse childhood experiences can severely impact a child's lifelong health and well-being, whereas children who are abused and neglected may suffer physical injuries, emotional and psychological difficulties, and long effects of trauma. And research shows that parents and caregivers who have support systems and seek help in times of troubles are more resilient and better able to provide safe environments and nurturing experiences for their children. And whereas every person should make children a top priority and take meaningful action to support children and families in their communities. And whereas during the month of April, Prevent Child Abuse Florida, in collaboration with the Governor's Office of Adoption and Child Protection, the Florida Department of Child and Families, and the Ounce of Prevention Fund of Florida implement Pinwheels for Prevention, where Pinwheels for Prevention is a statewide coordinated campaign aimed to increase awareness of child abuse prevention efforts by encouraging healthy child development, positive parenting practices, and community support. And the blue and silver pinwheel displays in this campaign are used to symbolize the health and wellness all children deserve. Whereas Child Abuse Prevention Month is an opportunity to encourage all Lynn Haven citizens and residents to put children first and engage in activities that strengthen families and communities. Therefore, the City of Lynn Haven and residents of the City of Lynn Haven do hereby extend our support to protect our children and observe April 2026 as Child Abuse Prevention Month. So that is our first. Our second one, we have Fire Chief Johnson and some of his valiant men and women here to receive this proclamation for International Firefighters Day. It's observed on May 4th to honor firefighters for their service internationally, remember firefighters who lost their lives during service, and to commemorate firefighters killed in September 11th attacks. Whereas it was originally established after a proposal by female Australian firefighter J.J. Edmondson was made on January 4th, 1999, following the deaths of five firefighters fighting a brush fire in Australia on December 2nd, 1998. And whereas a sound-off occurs at noon local time on the first Sunday of May as part of an International Firefighters Day, it involves turning on the sirens for 30 seconds and a subsequent moment of silence of 1 minute to commemorate all firefighters who were killed in the line of duty. The sound-off began in 2002 and has continued annually ever since. Fire prevention and the need for more intensive and thorough training is promoted through International Firefighters Day, and a day is seen as an important opportunity to raise both skills and awareness. And the red and blue ribbon is a symbol used for International Firefighters Day, representing the elements firefighters work with. The red in the ribbon represents fire, while the blue represents water. And whereas St. Florian, regarded in the Catholic Church as the patron saint of firefighters, is another symbol of International Firefighters Day. The Saint's Day, as observed in the Catholic Church of St. Florian, is May 4th. Hence, International Firefighters Day is also observed as May 4th. Now, therefore, we, the mayor of the City of Lynn Haven and the City Commission and residents of Lynn Haven, do hereby honor all firefighters and commit to observe May 4th, 2026 as International Firefighters Day. So with that, I'm going to sign this proclamation. And we have a presentation to give.
Sorry.
Now we also have a longevity award for Battalion Chief Joe Baba. Joe started as a certified firefighter with the city over 25 years ago on March 18, 2001. Prior to his start with the city, he worked as a cook, kitchen manager, deckhand, and assistant harbor master. He quickly impressed his leadership, working hard to complete his EMT training and certification and his AA degree. He later earned his BS degree. In 2004, he was named Firefighter of the Year by the Lions Club and American Legion. Throughout his career, he has received glowing evaluations, each one recognizing his hard work, consistency, and leadership. His hard work paid off with promotions to firefighter, EMT, senior firefighter, lieutenant, captain, and battalion chief, and he even filled in as our interim chief from May of 2024 to September 2024. To honor his exemplary work for our city, I'm proud to present our Longevity Award to Battalion Chief Joe Baba.
If we want to go ahead and do the moment of silence, and then we would do the official sound off, Everybody, please.
No, no worries. Thank y'all. To our brave men and women in the firefighting uniform, thank you for what you do. It takes a special kind of person as everyone's running away from the fires to run into the fire. Thank you for what you do. All right. What's that? All right. Next, we're on to the consent agenda. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 items on the consent agenda tonight. The approval of minutes for April 14th, 2026. The approval of the 911 plot residential incentive program times 2 on Louisiana Avenue. Appointment. And then approval for 3 surplus items to be auctioned off on govdeal.com. So, any discussion amongst the commission on any of these items? If not, for the consent agenda, can I get a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, thank you for that. I have a motion and a second. Are there any general commentary, remarks regarding these 6 items? I love it when we got just even kill. It's like Bueller. He may be on a roll again tonight, y'all. That would be an awesome thing. All right. Hearing none from the public. City Manager, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Warwick,
Yes.
Commissioner Peebles,
Yes.
Commissioner Perno,
Yes.
Commissioner Tender, Mayor Lowry.
Yes. The ayes have it.
Mayor, with that, I would like to welcome Miss Grand Prix as our new planning director.
Welcome, ma'am, and congratulations. Very much looking forward to working with you. And welcome to Florida, by the way. All right, so we're on now to old business. We have a final reading, number 14, final reading of Ordinance 1186, amending S.50.81, Lynn Haven Police Department ad hoc supplemental benefit. And turning this over to you, Mr. Jackson.
Yes, sir. This is ordinance number 1186, an ordinance of the City of Lynn Haven amending Charter Chapter 50, Personnel, Article 3, Police Officers Retirement System of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Lynn Haven, amending Section 50-81, Benefit Amounts and Eligibility, to provide for an ad hoc supplement benefit, providing for inclusion in the code, providing for severability of provisions, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you for that. Any discussion among the commission before we vote to approve?
No changes since the first reading? Right?
Correct. No changes.
I'll motion to approve.
Thank you. Got a motion?
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Thank you, gentlemen. Any comments from the public tonight on item number 14? I love it when y'all just look up, you're good to go. That's amazing. All right. Well, City Manager, would you call the roll?
Commissioner Peebles,
Yes.
Commissioner Perno,
Yes.
Commissioner Warwick,
Yes.
Commissioner Tender, Mayor Lowry.
Yes. Thank y'all for that. Now, I realize there will be worthy discussions and questions and things like that on some items, but my goal and the goal of the commission is to make these meetings as seamless and professional as possible. If we don't have to stay here for 3 or 4 hours, why should we, right? If we can get out and still have some daylight to go home and hug our families and throw balls with our kids or grandkids or walk our dogs, I want us to be able to do that. So, all right, moving on to item number 15, discussion and possible approval, first reading of draft ordinance establishing the office of the city clerk in the city charter. City Attorney.
Yes, sir. And Mayor, just as a aside for items number 15, 16, and 17, these are all proposed ordinances implementing potential changes in the charter that were sent to the commission from the Charter Review Committee. They are mostly on the agenda for a timing issue because we have to have this on, if it's going to have the August election, then it must be to the supervisor election by June 1st. And so if we're going to implement the ordinances before then, we need to get it. We have one meeting to kind of skip if we need to, if we make changes. But these are all for discussion of the commission. And basically it's time to put pen on paper for these charter proposals.
Sir. All right. So discussion amongst the commission on 15.
I need to read it, sir. I'm
Sure.
sorry. This is item number 15, ordinance number undetermined so far. An ordinance of the city of Lynn Haven, Florida, proposing amendments to Article 3 of the city's charter, establishing the office of city clerk and making conforming changes throughout Article 3 and Article 4 related to the duties of the city clerk, clarifying the procedure for appointment of department heads, designated all charter positions as whistleblower complaint recipients, provided that the proposed amendment should be effective only upon approval of referendum as specified in the ordinance.
All right. Thank you for that. I do not see, there he is. We do have the Charter Review Committee Chairman Corey Langford and Vice Chairman Ryan Scray here that can discuss further as well if there are any questions among the public. But all three of these items have been discussed significantly among the Commission and the Charter Review Committee. We had a joint workshop a couple of weeks ago where we talked through and worked through these. And the credit for this really goes to Commissioner Jamie Warwick. He's been a proponent of a city clerk for a long time. This makes a lot of organizational sense. Instead of having a single point or focal point for goodness and failure both, you have a trust but verify, and you have a dual accountability now, establishing a city clerk working hand in hand with a city manager. City manager handles most of the people and operations, while the city clerk would handle the resources and administrative policy largely. For big ticket dollar items, both signatures would be required, right? It's a trust but verify. Much like two nuclear officers in a missile silo, you can't turn two keys 40 feet apart from each other in complete sequence, right? This would help streamline organizational operations and give another peer direct report to the city commission. So in order to approve this, because we're amending the city charter, it actually has to go by referendum before Lynn Haven voters, which we are looking to do on August 18th. So that is the discussion item up currently. Commissioner Ward.
Harold, would you mind sharing the PowerPoint slide? I know at the town hall we had, it was brought up that it would be nice to have a visual of what it would look like before and after. So I got 3 slides here, and this is what it currently looks like. So this will be before the move. And this is where the city manager is the city clerk. And you also have assistant city manager, which would be the assistant city clerk. And I put on there who they oversee on this organizational chart. The key distinction I'd like you to kind of focus on is under the finance director, utility building director, and executive admin coordinator. That'll become more important on the later slides. If you go to the next slide, please. So these are the ones I just talked about. These are the positions that would move under the city clerk, with one exception, which I'll talk a little bit more, is the procurement manager. Go to the next slide, please. And so this is what it would look like after the city clerk moved under the commission. You'd have a city clerk treasurer, you'd have a deputy treasurer, and you'd have a deputy clerk along with the utility building director. The procurement manager, as I'm saying this is just one commissioner, how I envision this to look. I don't know how the other commissioners feel about this. We can talk about that. But the procurement manager will still be under the city manager operationally. However, what they do, that process will still go through the city clerk / treasurer, city clerk, for financial compliance and contract certification in order to keep those checks and balances. So I just thought I wanted to put a good visual out there so that everyone kind of understood what that move looked like. And hopefully that depicts that.
Yeah, the procurement manager thing makes sense to me. You're kind of having even though the city manager is over the procurement manager in terms of end of year reviews and being their boss and everything, you kind of use the treasurer to validate that the work is good because they're kind of the expert, if you will. So that makes sense to me.
And that would be too hard, to me, it would be too difficult for the city manager to task the procurement manager to do what they did if they fell under the city clerk.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. To me, it would slow the process down too much. But the checks and balances is still there.
Yeah.
This allows you to essentially have the city manager focusing on operations and the city clerk / treasurer focusing on resources.
Right.
Together, they work on behalf of the city commission in support of the city.
So to me, the whole idea is by having the city clerk under the commission with treasurer duties, any revenue or expenses that are done would have to go through them, which would be a separate entity. You know, to me, by having the city manager as the city clerk, it's just too much authority for one person to have, and there's just too many. It's a single breaking point, and that's not what we want. We need the checks and balances in place. But I do have a question for the city attorney. I know with the charter, they define the duties of a city clerk. And then in there, they put language with additional duties that could be assigned by the commission. Could we do this with it worded that way, or do we need to put in specific language that they're the city clerk / treasurer? Or can they be the city clerk doing the treasurer duties by us giving those additional duties?
So the way the charter proposed charter ordinance is drafted is to provide maximum flexibility for the position. It basically creates the position and defines the core functions as record custodian and the financial elections, the certification of elections. Other duties are assigned by the commission. You can do that by resolution.
Okay.
And so this entire structure could be set up by resolution, provided it passes. And then if there's some changes in the future, you could make changes. So it wouldn't be, this wouldn't be in the charter itself.
Okay. And I like that because originally I thought, okay, let's put it on the referendum, but I'd like to have the flexibility in case we need to regroup or something's not happening correctly, that we can make changes and have that flexibility. And once we get this established the way that we want, then maybe later down the line, it could be another referendum question to establish that. That's the way I look at it. But see what you guys think.
Gentlemen?
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying because it's going to take some massaging over time to get right. I mean, if you put everything in the charter, then it makes to where it might have to go before the public to vote again, and you'll have to go through the whole process of educating those that don't know what the clerk does and that kind of thing. So, yeah, makes sense.
Commissioner Perno, any thoughts, sir? All right. Commissioner Tender, do you have any thoughts you want to interject here, ma'am?
I don't know that I want to interject them right now.
Okay.
I feel like putting finance together with the clerk position, kind of doubling up, but no, I'd like to give it some more thought.
Yes, ma'am. So,
I'm sorry, go ahead. And the only other thing I wanted to provide input on was the changing the confirmation for the department heads. I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on, I know it says all department heads, but what are you guys' thoughts on where it's just the police chief and the fire chief? And the reason I say that is the police chief and the fire chief are are unique key leadership positions in the city that has a lot of public visibility of what they do, and it's really important to make sure we have the right people in those positions. And typically, in other cities, you typically see the police chief having to come through the commission or council somehow. Fire chief, I've seen some cities do it, some don't. But department heads, I don't typically see that where it comes to the commission. So I'm kind of a proponent of that and just kind of want to get your guys' thoughts on that.
Go ahead.
Can you, I guess, get a little bit, are you talking about with the whistleblower policy?
No. Nothing to do with whistleblower.
Oh, okay.
Just, like
Confirmation?
just when the city manager hires the department heads, how we did the confirmation with like when we hired
That's
the
what we
police
did on the
chief.
consent agenda with the planning director.
Right. Correct.
Well, I can tell you as a guy with 20 plus years of HR experience, I think for any key senior leader position, I think it's important for the commission to have that at the department head level. In fact, before I swore in as mayor, I actually spoke last December, and I recommended to y'all that you confirm both the department heads and the deputy department heads, because the deputy department heads are literally one heartbeat or one lightning strike or getting run over by a school bus away from being the leader of that department. And you shouldn't have anybody at that level performing if they're not a bright and shiny, well-trained, high-performing individual. Right? We have a lot of great department heads and deputy department heads. So that's my thought.
Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
I 100% agree with you. 100%. I think those people are only a heartbeat away. And I think rather than giving all that decision-making to just our city manager, I would think he would want our support on the back end of that too.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Commissioner Perno, Commissioner Peebles, thoughts?
I don't know. This is what worries me is when it comes to us, it politicizes the position. And so I kind of understand that with the police chief and the fire chief because it is a high public visibility position. The other ones, I see that more as operations because that's what we hired the city manager to do is run the operations. So that's kind of where I'm at with it.
Based on your lived experiences over the last several years, I completely hear where you're coming from. Ideally, and as we move forward, that should no longer be the issue. If we're doing our jobs right in an apolitical, professional manner, and we're not doing grudge fests and having to deal with dumpster fires, politically speaking, this should be a lot smoother. And that's the intent.
Mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
Mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
I also, again, I have to agree with you because I want to be transparent for the residents to know that we're not just hiring somebody's friend.
Right.
You know? I mean, I think they need to have the background and be able to back up what they say they can do.
Yes,
rather than just putting it all in the city manager's hands.
Yes, ma'am. So this is not a, we don't trust you, Chris. We hired you. This is a trust but verify and actually more bless. Trust and bless. And when you have the right guy or gal, it should be immediately obvious with the credentials. And it's an addition. I don't see it as any kind of slam on you personally or organizationally. It allows us to have input and a vote of confidence, basically. So any other discussion on the city clerk treasurer? The only question I have is how much Commissioner Warwick and rest of the commission do y'all see? I kind of hear what you're saying. It sounds like you're proposing leaving the treasurer title specifically off, just making it the city clerk to give yourself the flexibility. So down the road, the first one may be a tried and true finance bean counter. The next one, the next city clerk you may have may be 100% administrative person. As long as you have that rock solid deputy treasurer, there should be some level of competency with treasurer certifications and things like that to do the city treasurer duties in unison with the deputy. But what you're saying is it gives you the flexibility without tying your hands to being able to hire nothing but a bean counter for that job, right?
Yeah, so what I foresee is they would have the city clerk title, but not the treasurer title, but they would have treasurer duties. And then if we establish that and we think is working well, and that's how we want to permanently establish that, then we could make that a city clerk / treasurer position.
That makes sense. So, and I'm...
That's just my thoughts. I mean, I don't know how the rest of you feel, but...
That makes sense. And I'll throw out one real-life example. So if you look right down the street here at Tyndall Air Force Base, you have a wing commander who is a fighter pilot. He or she is not a comptroller. They have a comptroller. They have a finance person that does that. But ultimately, the wing commander, or the clerk in this case, would be the final certifier and would still be involved with all the resource decisions and things, even if they're not a CPA themselves. So, but organizationally, operationally, this divides. It allows the city manager to take care of people and operations, and it allows the city clerk to handle resources and administration.
Mayor, if I can clarify.
Yes.
So it sounds like the clerk language is fine. On the department head approval, is there consensus of the commission to add the assistant department heads also, or just leave it as drafted?
It's up to y'all. I would actually like to add deputy department heads, just because for continuity of operations, your number 1 and 2 leaders in each department, we need to know who they are and we need to know their qualifications. I don't want to micromanage, but...
That's what I think it does. I think it micromanages it, and I think we're getting too much in the weeds by going to do that. At what point do you allow the city manager to do the job that they've been hired to do? You know, and that opinion may differ between all of us, but I just think that's getting too much into it.
Yeah, and if, let's say, God forbid, one of the department heads leaves or, dies or whatever, the deputy would only be acting anyways. So if they were to be hired as the full-time, we'd still have to give our blessing.
That's a fair point.
I'm kind of a proponent of, if you don't trust the city manager to do that, then why do you have them as the city manager? It's kind of how I feel.
To clarify, there's no trust issue with our current city manager.
Yeah, sorry. I should have been more specific. I'm talking about not just now. I'm talking about like for the future, because we're making a charter call here.
Yeah. Yep. Commissioner Perno, any thoughts? All right, so we'll leave it with just department heads.
As drafted.
Right.
Mr. Jackson, do we need to read that ordinance tonight, or should we just leave it as draft and do the first reading next meeting?
We read it already, and I will assign, based on the commission's input, we can assign an ordinance number, and that'll be the first reading of the ordinance for public notice.
So there's no formal vote on this tonight, but I'd still like to open up general comment on this particular item for the public. If anyone has any concerns or thoughts other than Mr. Scray, who I know is going to come on up. And Chairman Langford, you as well, sir. If you two want to speak to this, to the public, please do. You guys built this and sent it to us. We very much appreciate your hard work with this, and love to hear from you if you want to speak.
I'm not speaking as a committee member, just as a procurement professional of 16 years. While I was back there, I wasn't sure you were going to allow public commentary given us a first reading, so I sent an email just to make sure the information got out there. But the chart as proposed, I'm neither here nor there on that. You guys can decide that, how that looks. But if you do go with what Commissioner Warwick's proposing, you left about 2 people that do procurement and purchasing functions on the wrong side of that line. There's a purchasing clerk and a purchasing specialist. Purchasing functions and procurement functions are largely the same. You're executing dollars and contracts and purchases, POs, all kinds of terminology that'll bore you to death. But you're doing effectively the same thing. You're buying something or services for the city. So what I would recommend is if you do want to go that path, you move those other 2 positions that are at the bottom of that line over underneath your procurement manager. That way you have your entire contracting shop, per se, under one line, and that line is all going up to the city manager. Operationally speaking, it makes sense for the city manager to be their direct report. That way you don't have other department heads trying to say, hey, circumvent your process and I'll approve it. None of that. I don't know how many procurements the city manager requests at their level. I would imagine that it's not a lot, kind of like your example. It's usually done at lower levels. So it makes sense there. But yeah, just make sure you're not splitting up those procurement duties into 2 different sides of the aisle, so to speak. Just kind of leave all 3 positions where they're at now and move all the other financial over. So thank you.
Thank you.
Well, the good thing is we got a while to think about this because it's still got to get voted on in August. So
Sure. Good evening, Chairman Langford.
Hey, good evening. Yeah, so Mr. Jackson hit the nail on the head. We did not want to tie your guys' hands as to how you all decided to set this construct up. We wanted to provide that maximum flexibility. And I think you guys have already hit on it, but we did not include the word treasurer anywhere in there. So, if that's the intent, it might be something that you guys want to discuss. We simply just established the position of the city clerk. So I know that some of the responsibilities would, align with that treasurer title, but I just think for, legal purposes or words matter, right? So just kind of keep that in mind. As far as the department heads, we did have the discussion on the committee as to, well, do we want to have the, just the police department, the fire department? Do we want to have, this department head or that department head? And, we talked through this at length and we were like, let's just keep it standardized. Why should we prioritize one department head as not necessarily more important or more visible, but every department head is equally as important. If they weren't, then we wouldn't have a department head. So Ms. Kiki over here is vitally important to the city of Lynn Haven, right? But Chief Blanchard has more public visibility. So, that's kind of the lens at which we looked at that through, not to prioritize one over the other, but really more of a standardized process. So that's it.
Thank you for that. Any other comments or feedback from the public? If not, I guess we're good there for tonight for the first reading. City Manager, did you have anything you wanted to add, sir? All right. City Attorney, anything more from you?
No, sir.
All right. Well, let's move on to number 16 then. Discussion and possible approval, first reading of a draft ordinance amending the city manager residency requirements in the city charter. City Attorney.
Yes, sir. This is ordinance number to be determined. An ordinance of the city of Lynn Haven, Florida, proposing an amendment to section 24, article 3 of the city's charter regarding residency of the city manager, requiring the city manager to establish permanent residency in Bay County within 12 months of his appointment, providing that the proposed amendment shall be effective only upon approval of referendum as specified in the ordinance.
And for those of you, we discussed this at our, a little bit. We've discussed this at the joint workshop with the Charter Review Committee. We discussed it at, I believe we brought it up at the last town hall. And there was a third time we've discussed it in public with citizens at large. Maybe we discussed it at the last commission meeting. I'm drawing a blank on the third one. But we have discussed this a few times. And ultimately, we had a lot of discussion with the Charter Review Committee in proposing this. Well, how far away should the city manager live in the city limits of Lynn Haven? And as it stands right now, the city manager actually lives just a little north of here in Southport. He's 8.5 miles from City Hall to his house. I'm 6.5 miles southeast of here to my house. We're both within 9 miles of this radius. So he's not a city taxpayer per se, but he is definitely a key part of this city in his role. One discussion point that, well, traditionally the city manager has lived within the city limits of Lynn Haven. But one interesting discussion point with the Charter Review Committee, and we have the chairman and the vice chairman here that can add some additional color if needed. where else do you draw the line? We don't require the fire chief or the police chief or the director of finance to live in the city limits. So obviously us commissioners and the mayor have to, right, to qualify for these public seats. But among city employees, full-time or part-time, should there be a residency requirement or should they be a straight Bay County citizen? And what the Charter Review Committee ended up recommending to us was a Bay County citizen. From the city hall here, you basically go, Chairman Langford, was it 22 or 24 miles from any corner of Bay County from here, give or take, right? So you can be anywhere in Bay County to here in 22, 24 miles. Now, if it's spring break or Thunder Bike Week, it might take you 2 hours to get here. But mileage-wise, you're talking 20, 22 miles. So that was the discussion at hand. So any discussions with this tonight among the commission that you'd like to talk about?
Mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to let everybody know that since that meeting, I've had maybe five or six residents come to me, and they all wanted to see him live within the city limits. And Chris and I discussed it the other day. Wanted to see him within the city limits because he plays a vital part in assessments and things like that that are going to be taxed to the city residents.
Sure.
That's all. I just wanted to throw that in there.
Yes, ma'am. Commissioner?
So I actually, as you know, I always do research, and I researched this, and the philosophy for a city manager living within city limits, the history has changed over time, not just for Lynn Haven, but across the nation. And historically, if they felt that if you're running the city, you should live in it, because you're, as Commissioner Tinder brought up, you're directly impacted by taxes, services, and infrastructure. So they feel that they should have skin in the game, and it was about accountability and connection. And back then, and particularly with smaller cities and local talent pools, the cities often hired local candidates and people already living in nearby. So residency wasn't a barrier; it was expected back then. And so, before modern technology, being physically present mattered more. So, for instance, let's say before we had these things and that, let's say we got to get a hold of the city manager, and someone might have to go to the house, because they can't get a hold of them. They have to be able to get to them quicker. Well, I'm sure Mr. Lightfoot would tell you that there's a lot of times he brings his computer home with him, does a lot of work from home. Sometimes he gets phone calls, and he can take care of those things from home. So you don't have that physical barrier like you used to. And so back then, managers were expected to be seen in the community and be easily reachable. But with technology, that we've kind of overcome that barrier. The specialized or specialty of a city manager has changed over time. City managers have become more of a professional career field, requiring degrees and things like that. So your best candidates may not live in the city, and that kind of opens up your pool of candidates. So that's kind of, I think that was all I had on that. So it's changed over time, in my opinion, and I just don't see an issue with it.
Commissioner Peebles?
My thought process on it is really simple. It's that we appointed a committee to look at this. If they want to put it in front of us to put on the ballot, let the people that vote decide. I think that's pretty simple to me. Other than that, I'll let the voting public decide.
Commissioner Perno says ditto. All right. Again, this is a first reading, so there's no formal vote happening tonight, but I want to open up the floor to any general commentary or questions from the public on this proposed item.
I have one.
And come on up, Mr. Bashir. Or would you rather hear from the chairman or the vice chairman? In fact, Johnny, let me sit you back down on the bench for just a minute. Chairman Langford, why don't you come on up and articulate just on behalf of the committee what your guys' thinking was here?
Yeah, and again, I'm not here to defend what we presented before you. I simply want to explain to you all what our discussions were and how we got to where we got to. I believe at the time, I don't think that when we discussed this, the city manager maybe had just gotten hired, but I think it was Mr. Detweiler. Had he been hired as the city manager, I think he would have had to move 4 houses down to be within the city limits of Lynn Haven. So that was kind of a thought point, right? So just kind of pin that. We discussed, because there were some comments that were made. Well, if the city manager doesn't live within the city, then they're really not going to take ownership, and they're not going to perform the same way as they would. So kind of indicating, well, if they don't live in the city in which they work in, then they don't care. And I believe it was Mr. Scray actually brought it up during the committee, and Miss Jody Moore was at the Charter Review Committee meeting, and he pointed out, well, Miss Moore doesn't live in the city limits of Lynn Haven, but she's very invested, and we're thankful to provide for her input and the things that she brings to either the Charter Review Committee or the commission meeting. So, just because you don't live inside the city limits of Lynn Haven doesn't necessarily mean that you don't care, because we have people that live outside of the city limits of Lynn Haven that actually do care. They're here and they provide input. So again, these are all things that were discussed, right? We took in all these different inputs, we sliced and diced and looked at it different ways. But that was kind of the majority of our discussions on why we got to where we got to with that.
Thank you, sir. All right, now, Mr. Bashir, thank you for your patience there and letting him articulate that.
Sure. First, a question. You've got 3 draft agenda items on this. If it goes to referendum, do each of those voted on separately to pass, or do they all 3 have to be voted yea to adjust the charter?
No, sir. The ordinances are not actually required for the referendum. So the referendum will have a general ballot question about charter changes and what the kind of general outline of those are, and they'll all go as one.
Okay. So if per se I was so opposed to one of the items, then I would have to vote no, and the other items would be no also.
Yes. Now the commission could put those up individually too. So
that's the clarification.
I don't know what the plan was for that.
I always thought it was to individually 3 different referendum items.
Yeah.
Yes, no.
Yeah. Generally, it's just a charter change, but these can be presented individually.
That's why I'm asking that question, because it is important.
I would be a proponent to have them separated out.
At the Charter Review Committee meetings, Ms. Myers has separated out and done a ballot language with the 75 words for each one individually.
Okay. I wanted to clear that up first. To me, the city manager living in Lynn Haven is not a function of accessibility or how close they are, or how long it takes them to get here. And I know Corey talked about that they'll still like Lynn Haven, still do a good job, but I want to know as a citizen that my city manager loves the city and wants to live in the city that he's running, or she, whoever it might be. I feel that's important and should stay like that. And like Sam says, we can vote on it and give it to the people and let them make the decision. And I agree with that to a degree. But my position is I want to know that the person running the city, one, is subject to the same things that I'm subject to. That the city services that I'm being provided, that's what he or she's being provided. That the garbage is the same. Everything is the same. So you can, skin in the game, and I know things have changed, but personally, I feel like that's important that they be in there. It's not a proximity. It's not about accessibility for me. It's about that overall look that you want in the city. You want somebody that loves the city so much that's where they want to live, and that's how I feel. And thank you for clarifying the 3 items too. Thank you.
Point well taken, Mr. Bashir. Thank you for that. Mr. Scray. Ms. Hodges, did you raise your hand, ma'am? Okay, you're next.
So Since Mr. Langford spoke as our committee, I'll just speak as me, as a resident. I disagree with Mr. Bashir. Anyone who knows anybody in Callaway that pays attention to what's going on in Callaway, ask them if they think Eddie Cook loves Callaway. Eddie Cook doesn't live in Callaway. Eddie Cook lives in Panama City Beach, but he's the city manager of the city of Callaway, and he is absolutely passionate about that city. So there is no testament that people can live outside of the city and still care about the city enough to do what's best for the city. I mean, if that was the case, if you have to be financially invested in the city to care, then there's a lot of people that come be in Lynn Haven that are not financially invested in Lynn Haven. For example, somebody brought up the fact that, like, well, they don't pay the city of Lynn Haven taxes. Well, I'm tax exempt. I'm a disabled veteran and I'm tax exempt, and I know Mayor Lowry, you are as well. And if either of us were city manager, would that be to say that we don't care about the city then because we're not paying the ad valorem tax? No, we're both very clearly highly invested in the community. So that kind of whole argument, it's an opinion, it's a subjective opinion, and that's all it will be. The only fact there is that it is a subjective opinion. Also, I found a picture of when the city managers needed to ride or come in, live in city limits, and it's back when they were on horseback. So that's where that came from. You know, when people didn't have vehicles that could easily drive across the bridge or travel into our community. That's really when those, like Commissioner Warwick said, that's when those requirements for city managers to live within the city existed. Great example about having to, before the cell phone that we all almost all have, before that came to be, right, you called them on the phone. If they didn't answer, you went and knocked on the door. You know, maybe you knew where they like to hang out, so you'd go check there to try to find them in an emergency. Or you have a delegated structure of other people you could call. If he's unreachable, who else can you call? You have an assistant city manager. Hey, for some reason, they're unavailable. Then you go to the next in line for the problem that you have. You know, if you have a sewer problem, are you going to go straight to him, or are you going to go to the person in charge of sewer? You know, that's why we have structures. That's why things exist. You know, it's just the residency requirement is something that limits the pool of potential candidates, and that's all it really is in modern society. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Hodges, just as a historical side note, as Mrs. Hodges is coming to the podium, out of the 98 or 99 applicants for city manager, none of the final 5 lived in Lynn Haven. One lived, like someone said, 4 doors down from the city limits. I think that was Mr. Scray, or maybe it was Chairman Langford. But regardless, none of them lived in the city of Lynn Haven. So anyone selected of those 5 finalists would be dealing with this requirement at this point. Yes, ma'am.
And I'm just here as a citizen, but since there is the issue of the city clerk, should you all consider residency for that position as well? I don't know if it's done for the charter language or by resolution, but to me that would be an imbalance because of the way those both would report to the commission, is to consider residency of your potential city clerk.
It's actually an interesting point. Thank you for that. I don't think any of us had even thought about that. Thank you. Any other comments or questions from the public on this issue? Hearing none? Okay. All right. Third and final of these 3. Discussion and possible approval, first reading of draft ordinance establishing non-ad valorem requirements in the city charter. Mr. Jackson.
Yes, sir. This is ordinance number 2 be determined. An ordinance of the City of Lynn Haven, Florida, proposing amendments to Section 6 of the city's charter to establish requirements for non-ad valorem assessments, requiring a referendum for proposed non-ad valorem assessments, setting forth the elements of required ballot language for proposed non-ad valorem assessments, limiting the duration of non-ad valorem assessment programs, limiting annual increases, providing for management, use, and oversight of non-ad valorem assessment funds, providing that the proposed amendments shall be effective only upon the approval of referendum as specified in the ordinance.
Awesome. Do we have these 7 items? Do we have this slide by chance that we could pull up?
We don't have a slide of it, Mayor, but I could read them.
If you would. So let me give a quick background. For those of you that may not have watched, we actually had this up on the screen and discussed it ad nauseum at the joint City Commission and Charter Review Committee workshop. And this is basically 7 points, 7 data points that going forward, anytime the City of Lynn Haven City Commission was going to establish some type of non-ad valorem tax, there are 7 data points that would need to be shared with the public in a very public way, and from like start to end time, how much it was going to cost, what it was for, and I'll let the city manager read that. But this is a standardized moving forward. Anytime there is a non-ad valorem tax assessed to the residents of Lynn Haven, we would owe it to all of you and us as taxpayers to do this, provide this basic information. City manager, would you read that, please?
Number 1, a defined start and end date. Number 2, a brief description of methodology of assessment. Number 3, estimated specific cost per year by property, in parentheses rate. Number 4, total project cost, annual and overall. Number 5, specific statement on usage of funds. Number 6, a limit on annual increase. And number 7, specific compliance and oversight requirements.
Thank you for that. And I'll start off the conversation here with, I am a very big proponent of this. I believe this is nothing but inherent transparency and goodness. We basically tell you what, we plan our work before we work our plan. And before we, the City Commission, ask the residents of Lynn Haven to pay an additional non-ad valorem tax assessment, we owe you exactly how much it'll be, when it'll start, when it'll end, what we're going to do with those funds, how much it'll cost. All of those things, frankly, as a person paying the stormwater non-ad valorem, just like the rest of you that live here in Lynn Haven, I feel like this is basic governance transparency. And if we may not like it, but when there's an inherent need like stormwater living at sea level and it's needed, then we need to have those clearly defined swim lanes, or as Jimmy Buffett would say, the navigational beacons, right? That's where we're at with this. I think it's good. I think it's transparent. Commissioners, what are y'all's thoughts?
I have a few thoughts. Obviously, I like the 7 points. We talked about that. The transparency, the buzzword of transparency rings true here for sure. My question, I guess, would be for the attorney. Let's say theoretically this goes on a ballot and it is voted down. Does that mean stormwater is no longer funded? Yeah.
Well,
No, sir. So there already is a non-ad valorem ordinance and code section in our code that deals with these type of issues, and that is non-ad valorem goes through the Florida statutes and where our code requires every year and is renewed and has to follow those processes. So this wouldn't repeal anything in the one on the ballot and didn't get approved. It wouldn't repeal anything that's currently ongoing with the city.
Okay, great. And my other thing, thank you for that. My other thing is I do think rather than just saying that there should be a limit on how much it increases, I think we should give a specific percentage of how much it can increase, because it would help us kind of set the boundaries or the guardrails now. Because if you just say you need to put the amount, I mean, you could theoretically say it can increase up to 90% every year. You know, if a certain group of commissioners in the future really wanted to do that, and then, you know, let's just say worst case scenario, and then it's not promoted properly or whatever, and it passes, and then, I mean, theoretically, you could almost double the increase every single year. So I'm thinking maybe we should put in the verbiage somewhere an actual number, maybe like 10% or something like that.
Talking like a contingency fee if something breaks or cost overrun kind of thing?
No, in one of those 7 items, it says that you need to list the increase that's going to happen over time. I think we should put an actual specific percentage cap, kind of like we do with the homestead exemption. But I would say that I'd like it to follow the homestead exemption to where the cap is only on homestead homes and vacant land, not the rentals or the businesses. So that way you have an incentive to be a resident here rather than come in and buy a bunch of homes and rent them out.
So what I'd ask this, what is the purpose of the charter? What's the purpose of it?
Your core governing document. Certify your current requirements, organizational structure, and functions that lie within. Your core bedrock functions.
And that's what I worry about with this, because the purpose of your charter is to structure your government, the roles and qualifications of key officers, and who has authority. So it answers the who, but it's not supposed to answer the how. So this, to me, this is about policy making. Policy making isn't supposed to be in the charter. That's what we've been charged with when we were voted into office. So, policy policy decisions are how things are done. Policy decisions are procedures. Policy decisions are financial rules and operational requirements. I feel like, we're going to start putting some ordinances in there too. I mean, because that's what we've been charged to do. And I feel like this is overstepping the bounds of what is a charter supposed to be. So I have no problem. I'm all about transparency and the 7 points. I have no problem with that. But as far as the how, it doesn't belong in the charter. That's policy decision making. That's supposed to be done by ordinances and resolution. And that's what we've been charged to do with. That's the way I feel about it.
I will just say, and then I'll turn it over to Commissioner Perno and Commissioner Tender if they want to add anything, is I have much professional love and respect for you, brother. We will disagree from time to time, and this is just one of those things. I feel like to ensure maximum transparency moving forward, this is one of those things that's important enough to, by golly, put it in the charter. And it will just establish any chart until a future commission changed it through referendum. Any time we go to the people and ask them to pay more non-ad valorem taxes, we owe them these 7 things. We're not curtailing the authority.
Yeah, I have no problem with the 7 things.
I just think this is one of those rare exceptions where it's important enough to basically put it in our operational, organizational charter or functional Bible, if you will, right? Make it bedrock, as permanent as a tattoo, per se, right?
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Tender, do you have anything you'd like to add, ma'am?
Yes, Mayor, I do. I just want to say that I think there should be a limit on the increases. I think they should be capped so that we can't just continue to go up every year. And that's basically what I wanted to voice. I think however this ends up, whoever is making it up or whatever, or if it's a combination of 2 groups or 1 group or whatever, I think capping it so it does not continue to increase. This could just get way out of hand real quick, but that's my only comment.
Yes, ma'am.
And we can do that by ordinance. We can. So to me, if we approve this, we're approving that we should put procedures in the charter. That's what we're saying.
This is a foundational transparency requirement in my mind. That's the difference. Commissioner Perno?
I can see the 7 points right here, plain as day. I could see future assessments guided by the 7 points. That would have to bring a cap, or so to speak, or when you're establishing the assessment, following these guidelines, we would do exactly what we're saying to do in the charter. So in less words, I agree with Commissioner Ward, is that we're setting the skeleton for it for the future, and when we're faced with the next assessment, I hope we never have one, but at that time, following these 7 points, you're going to have to put a cap on it. You're going to have to state the annual increases. It's what we're telling people. It's going to have a beginning. It's going to have an end. So, the 7 points take care of itself, and we're not overemphasizing a certain percentage increase or a dollar amount that may or may not fit the assessment at the time. We might not be here. It might happen in another lifetime. So you don't put stuff in the charter, it's going to be contradicted in the future.
I mean, and we talked about this before, where we're unsure what's going to happen with property taxes, right? And I'm not for assessments. I don't want people to think I am. I'm hoping that the stormwater assessment's the only one we have for years and years to come. It's not fun, but if we do this? What's the next thing we put on there? We're going to put on utility rates, because essentially it's wherever you're getting your tax revenue from, or wherever you're getting your revenue from those enterprise funds. So if you want to put your utility rates on there, then, or if you want to put on this on there, then you might as well put on your utility rates too. I mean, where do you draw the line?
Well, and if it's the percentage of rate increase, if that needs to be reworded in some way, because I hear you and Commissioner Perno both talking about a concern of a limitation there that we might be shooting ourselves in the foot. I'm all about the transparency piece. As much, and I think we're in violent agreement here that we need to share as much of the 7 points as humanly possible with the public when we roll out, hey, here's the non-ad valorem and here's the need we have for it. And then any educated, citizen at that point can make a decision on, I agree with you, I disagree with you, and obviously there'll have to be forums and workshops and feedbacks and stuff before any of that things happen. But here's the why. Here's why we're proposing this, and here's all 7 key data points on that. That's just transparency and good governance at its basic. If the main concern is just that increase piece, then let's sit down with Kiki, let's sit down with the charter review, and let's discuss that, and if we have to re-articulate that somehow, fine. Let's do that. Let's get the 7 points out. I feel like we owe that to the community, right? So if there is a concern there, let's delve into it while we still have time before we need to get this by the 1st of June, correct? City Attorney? So August 18th is the referendum. We're putting it on the Bay County-wide ballot at that point, and this saves us. It won't cost us a thing. And otherwise, this would cost us $20,000, give or take, if we were to do our own referendum. So we're basically using a great opportunity to piggyback and put this forward for Lynn Haven voters to give yay or nay on these 3 items, which will be done individually, as Mr. Bashir helped us clarify. Any other discussions?
Mayor, I'd like to clarify Commissioner Peebles' question to make sure either I understood it or to cover the reverse. So my understanding was the question was, if this doesn't pass, does it repeal the current stormwater? And I don't think it does. The question, the other reverse of that is, if this does pass as drafted, does it repeal the current stormwater? And I think there's a possibility that it does, and we will look into that, because the way the ordinance is drafted, it requires a referendum to approve any stormwater assessment. And so our stormwater assessment, we'll have to go back and look at the ordinance, but it generally is renewed annually at the part of the budget process. And so the question will be for us to look at is whether this charter amendment would cover that referendum and would effectively stop it until it's passed by the voters, or if the one that was provided by the commissioner before can continue to the end of its time.
Just to clarify, you city attorney, this non-ad valorem, the one that we have, the non-ad valorem for stormwater, it gets renewed or not renewed by the city commission once a year. As long as that stays in operation, that's effectively a grandfathered in. Or are you saying because it has to be renewed each year, once the 7 points, let's say, gets passed, then it would have the annual renewal would drive the new process? Is that what you're saying?
What I'm saying is that the charter amendment as proposed currently requires voter approval of any non-ad valorem assessments. And so the question is, and this is something the commission could resolve as part of this process before we get there, is our current stormwater assessment, is that going to continue without voter approval, or would it require voter approval? And my recommendation would be that we deal with this up front so the commission knows and we can put it in the charter language.
So Commissioner Warwick brought up a good point, and we've talked about this. I talked specifically about it in the town hall on Saturday. We don't know, and Commissioner Warwick's already mentioned it, we don't know what's going to happen at the state level with ad valorem taxes. South Florida has a lot of user fees to fund their fire and police. So if homestead exemptions across the board go into effect, we as the city lose about 30% of our operational budget. Is that correct? Give or take, Kiki? 30?
7 million out of 20 million.
Okay. So that's about a third, actually. Mm-hmm. So that's significant. So the non-ad valorem becomes the emergency, or really the only other tool other than some special user fee that would be created to fund police, fire, those kind of things. That becomes your tool of last resort, right? So I guess what I'm saying is there is some hesitation to tie your hands before you know how the state is going to play this. Regardless of the resolution piece, do I think this should go before the citizens and vote? Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Regardless of whether we send it to a referendum for approval, and there have been historics on this when people have done this. Georgia actually does this quite well. And 80-ish, 75, 80-ish% of the time, folks actually, when they're given this information, have voted to approve, and not by 2 or 3 hanging chads, seriously by healthy margins, approve the non-ad valorem tax increases for a specific time for a specific purpose. Regardless of that, if we can go back and relook at it if there's a concern among the commission. I think the 7 points, we need to codify the 7 points of information for any non-ad valorem moving forward. I feel like we owe that to the citizens. How we do the other piece that in terms of the requiring the referendum to approval, not knowing what the state is going to do with ad valorem at this point. I understand the concern of tying our hands. And other than either relooking at that or segregating the 7 points out from the referendum approval, I don't know what else we can do at this point while we wait for the state to figure out what they're doing. Any other thoughts or discussion points here?
I have a question for the city attorney. I don't know if you can answer this or not, but am I off about what I talked about earlier about charter being what the charter's purpose is for government framework, not policy?
Generally, that's correct, yes. I mean, the charter is like the Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
So it's generally broad general powers and restriction on general powers that you would want on a large basis. You typically don't put in the charter stuff that can be dealt with by ordinance, because the charter binds the future commissions and also kind of sets out the foundation and the framework of the government overall.
And that's what I'm worried about, is if we put that in. I don't have a problem putting the 7 points in there. That's required to do an assessment fee. I think we're all in agreement on that. What I'm worried about, if you put all these requirements in, well, 2 things really. If you put all these requirements in, we're going to set a bad precedence for the charter, and people are going to, and it's going to be utilized for things that's going to be more for policy making as opposed to government framework. That's what I'm worried about.
For this specific 7 points of what effectively a professional tattoo of what we are putting on our skin per se as a permanent, any future tax increases by this commission or any future commission until they change the charter will be required to give these 7 points of data to the public at large. In your professional opinion, it could be an ordinance, but could it not also be a common something you find as a core governing swim lane in a city charter as well?
Yeah, it's up to the commission what they want to put to the voters to be put in the charter. Both are appropriate. And if there's, charters generally have restrictions on power. And so a notice requirement would certainly be something that could be in the charter. The voter approval of taxation, that's sometimes required for like the sales tax issues, but the non-valorem, because it's typically a user fee and assessment, typically is not required for voter approval. That would be something you could put in there too. Obviously it is, but it can bind the future commissions.
The way I structurally, and Mr. Langford, I'm going to ask you to come up, or Chairman Langford, I'm sorry, come up and speak to this a little bit as well on behalf of the Charter Review Committee. I see a non-ad valorem as a tourniquet, a short term, and I think you've actually used that term yourself, as a short-term triage situation. It's not supposed to be a long-term, indefinite, non-sunsetting kind of thing. So can you give us a little bit more color here in the background?
Sure, and if you don't mind, I'd like to address you as chairman of the Charter Review Committee, but then I would like Ms. CJ to start my 3-minute clock after that, and I'd like to address you as Corey Langford, a taxpayer, if that's okay. So regarding the Charter Committee, first of all, after the joint workshop occurred and what you all decided during the joint workshop, this ordinance should have been updated based on what you all wanted, okay? What you're looking at in front of you is what we submitted to you all as we voted on, okay?
The original.
Correct, the original. That has the ballot referendum for voter approval of non-ad valorem assessments, et cetera. You all decided during the joint workshop, at least what I got during the joint workshop, is the only thing you all wanted to take out was the 7 items, okay? So at that point, that ordinance should have been updated, and that's what you should be looking at in front of you right now. So I hope that clears that up, because right now you're looking at what we initially submitted to you all before the joint workshop. And during the joint workshop, you all removed 90% of that and wanted to pull out the 7 items. Okay, so that's point number 1. Point number 2, we did look at it through an authority and a powers, limiting government powers, like Mr. Jackson had discussed. It's not, the way in which we looked at it was not on an operational granular level. It was looking at it through a limitation of power by elected officials, which I think Mr. Warwick hit on, the authority. What we had proposed said that you have the authority to do this. Now, someone could look at that and say, well, that's an operational level, that's this or that's that. That's the lens in which we looked at it. So,
thank you for that clarification, sincerely. So just to be clear, we are talking about only the 7 points the city manager read out tonight. As a permanent tattoo, if you will, in the charter to have to share this with the public before we can tax them for these things as a non-ad valorem tax assessment.
What I would recommend is the commission instruct the city attorney what the ordinance should read based on our findings during the joint workshop. Because remember, we drafted this original ordinance. We provided it to you all. We had a joint workshop and said, hey, here's how we got to where we got to, okay? You guys can take out of that and cherry pick or whatever you want, right? Add to, take away, whatever. At the end of the day, it's your guys' ordinance that goes to the ballot referendum. Now, we're going to come up as citizens and say, hey, this is what we think, you all should do with what the Charter Review Committee submitted to you all. And that's kind of where I'm at with that as the charter chairman. Does that make sense?
Sir. Commissioners, any questions for the chairman? Thank you for that.
Yep. I'd like to take my Charter Review Chairman hat off and address you as Corey Langford, the citizen now. Commissioner Peebles, Mayor Lowry initially, and Commissioner Tender, I want to thank you for advocating for a annual cap on how much it can increase. Commissioner Warwick hit on it, authority. What I didn't hear when he was describing the charter was the people's document. The charter is the people's document. This is not the commission's document. What goes in the charter and what changes in the charter will be voted on by the people and the taxpayers in Lynn Haven. Okay? So that's point number one. Point number two is it is a limitation of authority, and it is appropriate to standardize a percentage in the charter. It's limiting authority. It's telling the commission you have the authority to increase this annually by whatever, we can throw out numbers, 10%, 15%, 20%, whatever the percentage is, right? What the Charter Review Committee provided you all was a copy and paste from the fire assessment, which is in Florida statute. Florida statute says you can only increase the fire assessment in this manner, right? So the law says that's what applies to the fire assessment, right? So we started there, right? You can go and put a percentage on it, 10%. But bottom line is this: if I'm paying, let's just throw out some easy numbers here. Let's say I'm paying $100 a year on my non-ad valorem assessment. All I'm asking for is the city to tell me, Mr. Langford, we can only increase that 10% every year. So I know next year the most that I'm going to have to pay is $110, and then it can increase 10% after that, or whatever that percentage is. Okay, and it's not just for me; it's the retired individuals that we have living in our community that are on a fixed income, that are trying to figure out how they're going to pay their taxes, how they're going to pay whatever non-ad valorem assessment the city decides to come up with, and increase it however much they want to increase it. At least if you told them that we're locking it into this percentage increase every year, they have something to rely on, okay? You all have had 100% authority since 2021 on increases. At no time in the past 5 years has anyone said, hey, we owe it to the public to say we can only increase it this amount. There is no cap. You can increase it 500% if you want, okay? That's all we're asking for, is allow the voters to vote to say, we want to restrict the powers of the commission through the charter because this is the people's document, that you can only increase it by X percent every year. I think that's fair to the public. I think that's a realistic request. I'm not trying to defund stormwater or defund anything. It's just provide some sort of standardized approach. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Langford. And I guess that's where the administrative disconnect happened. We were reviewing the original submission from the draft from the Charter Review, post-workshop draft. Sure. And that's fair. I'm not casting stones or casting any blame. I'm just realizing where the disconnect was.
So the process is that if you all are happy with what was proposed, the older version, we can just go forward with first reading and continue. If you want to make changes to this and narrow it down to the 7 that was previously discussed, we can make those changes. We just need some direction from you, and then we'll bring it back for next meeting for first reading.
Let's do that. And city manager, city attorney, I'm going to ask you two gentlemen to run point on that. Get inputs from the 5 of us on the commission. I think we're all in agreement on the 7 points, but whatever other inputs or tweaks you want otherwise for that, go ahead and submit them, and let's take a look at this as a combined new first reading at our next meeting. We have the time. Let's go ahead and like General McQueen likes to say, let's not rush to failure. Let's do another first reading of the revised relook at our next meeting.
So you all have the ordinance there in your packet. If you would just redline it and email it to me, we will make sure that the changes are made.
Thank you, sir. And my apologies for the disconnect there. I did not realize that no update function happened after our initial joint workshop, where we met for what, 2.5 hours? There was quite a bit of goodness and discussion between the commission and the committee. So, Ms. Moore, come on up. Come on up. We've already talked about you once tonight.
I know, my name came up. I just want to say, I see what Jamie is saying, though. Something might be a good idea, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it needs to be in the charter. So I just want you guys to really think about what you're doing. I belong to, several groups, and there's policy, and then there's the bylaws, and that's kind of like the charter. So, the Constitution is, a short document, compared to a lot of other places. So, again, something might be a good idea, but you don't want to be too unwieldy. So I'm not saying that this is a bad idea, and I think definitely in some ways limiting government and how much can be spent, I think that that's a worthy cause. But again, I think y'all really need to be careful to don't throw so much in there that there's too much. You want it to be something that can be, an overriding kind of thing and not so detailed. So just to comment, like I said, I see what Jamie's saying too. You don't want to cross the line when something is supposed to be a function of the government. But I also hear the citizens here, they don't want to be, paying $500 for a water bill. I know that's an exaggeration.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Scray.
The same Congressional Hall, as the sponsor of this bill, as the sponsor of the 7 items, I wanted to clarify some of my intent as I brought this forward through the process and through the committee and through the workshop. The reason we didn't put a cap in there on how much the commission could put on that line item of the 7 items is because that's for the legislative body to work with the city to figure out what that needs to be when you pitch a non-ad valorem to the community. Whether that's 3% or following the fire assessment protocol or 10% or saying, hey, there's no cap because we don't know how much our needs would be. I don't know what items would require no cap, but maybe there's no cap. Just like in the workshop, we talked about start and end dates, and we determined that some non-ad valorems, should they need to be created, I think of 2, fire and police, for example, maybe there's no end date. And that's the way you pitch it to the city is there's no end date because we don't want to get rid of core services like fire and police in the city. And so as a citizen, you hear, okay, this is for no end date and this is what it's for. Okay, I agree with that. And then I don't have to come after y'all at the ballot box saying, I didn't like that person, get rid of them, I left our workshop understanding, like Chairman Langford, that you guys had scrapped almost everything out of there and left only behind a few key pieces, the 7 items and some key other, very small other pieces like related to oversight and stuff like that. So my understanding was it was going to be updated for y'all, so I appreciate that you guys are doing that. But yeah, I think you nailed it, that you can't sit up there and say you're for transparency if you're not willing to at least via an ordinance or resolution or whatever, not ballot box, but via that, say, hey, the city needs to do this non-ad valorem for this purpose, and here's all the information you as citizens deserve to hear. For example, if I want to go over to my side of the community where we have no sidewalks, if I wanted to spend the time to go door to door and find out who would support a non-ad valorem for sidewalks for, say, 10 years, I could go do that, and I would come to you guys and say, hey, I have a list of petition signatures, 80% of our community is willing to pay $100 a year toward sidewalks in our area. And as we learned on the committee, you guys could pass a non-ad valorem just for our properties that the rest of the city wouldn't have to pay. It's like Mill Bayou could do that for their lights. You know, you could pass a non-ad valorem just for their lights. So that's kind of to answer your question, Commissioner Peebles, why we're not putting, and I know Commissioner Tinder had that too, why we're not putting a cap in the charter is exactly like Commissioner Warwick said. That's not the place to do it. The place to do it is right there when you guys are setting up non-ad valorems.
Thank you. Mr. Bashir.
I'm with Commissioner Warwick on this. Y'all set the budget every year. You vote on the millage rate, whether to raise it or not. Do you want the voters to have a say in if you're going to raise taxes via the millage rate? I mean, this is if you really, really want this, pass an ordinance. Do it today, or not today, but do first reading next time. Pass an ordinance incorporating just what y'all are talking about, the 7 items and everything else. You've got that power to do it right now. You don't have to go out and let the citizens say, no, we don't want this, or yes, we want this. You have that authority currently to put that in place. Do it. I mean, it's to me, it's that simple. If you put it in the charter, you're handcuffing yourself or handcuffing future people on what can and can't be done. And if that's your intent, state it and say that's your intent, and that's okay. But as a citizen, I don't think the charter is where you need this at. I think just like Commissioner Warwick says, you can do it today. It's an ordinance. You can do it by ordinance. And I agree, it's something that needs to be there. There was a lot of misunderstanding about the stormwater assessment, how those funds were going to be spent. When I was going door to door, I heard that time and again. We thought y'all were going to do projects with that money, but no, you're not. There was misunderstanding and it wasn't communicated well. An ordinance incorporating 7 things, yeah, that would solve that problem, but that is within your power today to do that. You don't have to wait for it. And if let's say, you do go forward and put it on a referendum and the voters say, no, we don't want to do this, I would encourage you to pass an ordinance anyway if you haven't already, incorporating those 7 things. You just have that power. There's no reason to put it in the charter at this point. It's a procedural thing, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments or questions? Ms. Parker. And while she's coming up, City Attorney, just a point of clarification. For ad valorem taxes, there are state limitations on how much those can go up per year. Kiki, you might tie into this as well. But those same requirements or limitations of a percentage of increase are not in place, or there aren't any of those corresponding on the non-ad valorem side, correct?
So on ad valorem, it's set by the Florida Constitution at 10 mils. Is the maximum that you can issue, any government can issue. On non-ad valorem, it's governed by statute, and there are some limits on what you can do. The property has to have a benefit. It has to, whatever the fee or assessment is, has to benefit the property, and the fee has to be proportionate to the benefit that's provided to the property. So that's why the city will typically get a study that shows here's the properties that will be affected, here's the cost of what we're trying to do, and here's how we're going to just proportion that either at a percentage, 50%, 20%, or 100%, whatever. But there is a limit. You couldn't just, without a study, just say, hey, we're going to charge everybody an extra 500% or something like that. There are statutory limits under the Florida law.
You have to back it up with justification.
Yes.
But there isn't the same millage percentage limitation as there is on ad valorem.
It's not a hard cap, and the ultimate limit is whether it's a tax. So taxes have to be approved by the voters, and this is not ad valorem assessment is technically not a tax. And when it gets closer to a tax, then it can be challenged legally, and that has happened in the state before. So that's why there's the assessment and a study that shows that this is really just a fee. It's not really a tax for services, whatever you're trying to assess.
Good evening, Ms. Parker.
Hello. I'm actually live streaming from Bernie Thompson, so I'm going to read some comments from him.
He said all cities should fund essential government functions out of operational general fund. Instead, they shovel millions to their consultant and contractor friends. Then they create additional revenue streams for priority issues. Then they cry poverty. The real issue is that the stormwater assessment should be for an urgent need. It's not for creating a permanent stormwater department. He also said that Corey Langford is the chairman of the Charter Review Committee, and he's pushing hard for limiting annual increases for taxpayers. He should get more support. Thank you.
One tidbit on that, I did mention, and I don't want to belabor the point any further I don't have to, but at the town hall on Saturday, I actually mentioned that. Among the board, all 5 of us love Lynn Haven. We don't all agree on the best way forward with the stormwater long term. I'm of the opinion this is an operational department, just like fire and police. We live at sea level. It's always going to be an issue. There's always going to be a need there. This is not a tourniquet kind of situation. However, there are millage rate limitations, and I think that was why ultimately the City Commission went the way it did prior to me joining and doing the stormwater assessment as they did. Moving forward, that's a discussion we will continue to have philosophically, and how do we do this best? And I don't know that we've got the best solution at this point. It's changed multiple times, and I suspect it will continue to change until we strike that just right balance and thread the proverbial needle. But thank you for that, Ms. Parker. All right, any other questions on this? Mr. Gorman, good evening.
I definitely don't want to belabor the point anymore as far as is it a limiting factor or otherwise. It would be probably instructive as you're going forward and going with the new draft and talking about this to really look at if we're going to compare it to the Constitution. Well, let's do that. Okay, in the Constitution you have limits, but limits sometimes are just Congress has the power of the purse. Okay, but Congress does not promulgate individual taxes, tax rates, effective tax rates, those things. That is done by policy, if you will, through the IRS, through rev rules. Okay, so if you're using the federal government as an example, it would be less proper to put specific caps in. But that's really, again, I think there's been enough on that. I think something that you should consider. Let's rewind to 2018. If we are saying that any assessment must be approved by the voters, what happens if a Cat 5 rolls through? I think you should heavily consider having an emergency. Hey, the commission can act on their own for 3 months, 6 months, whatever it might be, and then a referendum would need to be upheld by the citizens. But if we have another Hurricane Michael, the last thing we have time to do is call the voters in and say, hey, can we help fund, especially if ad valorem is gone, and especially if more than a third of your budget is already wiped out. So again, am I saying let's have no voter input? Absolutely not. I'm just saying there are certain times when you must govern as a governing body without the input of the citizens, but it can then absolutely be upheld later. I mean, and that doesn't have to be a year down the road. That can be 3 months down the road, 6 months down the road. We wouldn't have even had a place to vote on a referendum for months after Hurricane Michael. So just from a governing standpoint, to not tie your hands in a way that you might not consider, I would really think about, okay, what about an emergency? And make sure that's clearly laid out.
Thank you for that, Mr. Garman. That was very thoughtful. And just to clarify, as we move on to the next discussion item, what was submitted in the package was the original Charter Review Committee's draft, which we then discussed ad nauseum in a joint 2.5-hour commission and committee meeting, and it did not get updated. So what we had before us tonight was the original submission, not the pieces that we basically kind of all agreed with and said, yes, we will move forward with this. So that was a disconnect. It was an inadvertent disconnect, but it was a disconnect. And we will fix that, and we will run that tape again at our next meeting in 2 weeks. So my apologies for that disconnect. All right. Unless there's any other discussion for the good of the order here, we will revisit the 7 points. which I think is fundamentally a local bill of rights, if you will, for non-ad valorem taxes moving forward. And what we owe the citizens before we could tax them on the non-ad valorem is we got to tell you what's coming and why we need it, and here it is. I think that's very fair and transparent. Anything else beyond that, we will have another look at it in 2 weeks. All right. Moving on, number 18, discussion and possible approval of Resolution 2026-04-545, awarding Bayou Park Lawn Care Services to GrowPro LLC in the amount of $121,800. City Manager.
A resolution of the City of Lynn Haven, Florida, approving a 5-year agreement with GrowPro LLC relating to the provision of lawn care and chemical services at Bayou Park and Preserve in an amount of $121,800. And Mayor, we're currently spending around $150,000 annually, so the bids came in cheaper, so we will be saving a little bit annually on this expense.
Awesome. And what's the ballpark of the savings?
About 30 grand.
Okay.
Is this funded through the money we got for the Bayou?
It currently is. I mean, it's a 5-year agreement, so it could run into where it's time for us to pay it out of pocket once this agreement's over, or by the time the agreement's over.
It's $30,000 less. Is the scope of work the exact same?
Oh, same scope of work.
Yes, sir. Same scope of work. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve.
Yes, ma'am.
Second.
We'll give that to Ms. Tender and seconded by Commissioner Perno. Thank you both. Any discussion from the public at large on this item? Hearing none. Y'all have been very graceful tonight. Thank you for your patience as we work through this and the robust discussion on the 3 CRC items. Hearing no inputs, City Manager, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Tender.
Yes.
Commissioner Perno.
Yes.
Commissioner Peebles.
Yes.
Commissioner Warwick.
Yes.
Mayor Lowry.
Yes. All right. 5-0. Thank you. Now, item number 19, discussion and possible approval of Resolution 2026-04-546, amending the fee schedule. Deputy Director of Finance.
A resolution of the City of Lynn Haven, Florida, amending Chapter 70 of the fee schedule in Appendix A of the Lynn Haven Code of Ordinances and providing for an effective date.
Good evening. This is just a change it's on page 124 of the agenda attachments. It's really a fee that the city collects on behalf of the county. We're really kind of the pass-through. So to collect it and then pay it through to the county.
So this is just one change in addition to the fee schedule that was already updated earlier this year.
Yes, but it's not really a fee that the city keeps. We collect it and then we pass it on to the county.
And what
collect
is
it
this
on their
fee in
behalf.
particular? Just to
For
articulate.
retail water connection fees.
And Mayor, this would be if, like, on the east side of the city where we are a wholesale customer of Bay County, if somebody were to build a home, they would have to pay the Bay County connection fee because they are getting the water through the city, but it's from the Bay County wholesale side. So that's what that's for. Not every lot in the city pays this, just the ones that are in that service area.
Understood. And like you said, this is a pass-through. There's no significant changes. Any questions from the commission? It seems pretty straightforward.
Yes. This is what very much just a formality, really, right?
Yes, sir.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for Mr.
Mayor, if I could just make one suggestion
No.
to add in language on the asterisks in the fee schedule that it only applies to properties that are serviced wholesale by the county.
That's a good input.
Motion to approve that.
Motion to approve as amended.
Second.
Got a motion to approve as amended, recommended by the city attorney. I got a motion from Commissioner Perno, a second from Commissioner Warwick. Any discussion from the public on this one? Okay, no problem with that. City Manager, would you call the roll?
Commissioner Perno.
Yes.
Commissioner Warwick.
Yes.
Commissioner Peebles.
Yes.
Commissioner Tender.
Yes.
Mayor Lowry.
Yes. Thank y'all for that. All right. Item number 20, discussion and possible approval of Resolution 2026-04-547, approving additional services for the 10th Street Utility Project. City Manager.
A resolution of the City of Lynn Haven, Florida, approving an agreement with Dewberry Engineers relating to additional post-design services for the West 10th Street Utility Improvement Project and the total amount of $95,250. And Mayor, this is just finishing up the CDBG project. We've done the change order for construction. We did the contract amendment for the record retention. This is finalizing Dewberry's services for the project to close it out and finish the CEI.
All right. Awesome. Any questions among the commission? No. All right. If not, can I get a motion and a second?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you for that. All right. Thank you. Any questions from the public on this one? Okay. City Manager, would you call the roll?
Commissioner Warwick?
Yes.
Commissioner Perno?
Yes.
Commissioner Peebles?
Yes.
Commissioner Tender?
Yes.
Mayor Lowry?
Yes. Thank y'all for that. All right. 21, discussion and possible approval of Resolution 2026-04-548, approving a contract for Gulf Coast utility contractors for stormwater repairs in the Woodrum subdivision. City Manager.
A resolution of the City of Lynn Haven, Florida, approving an agreement with Gulf Coast utility contractors relating to Wood Run subdivision stormwater repairs and the total amount of $64,649. And Mayor, this is just some stormwater repairs. If you saw in your packet there on page, I believe that's 144. You can see that pipe is completely rusted out. I believe we got our money's worth out of that one. Staff did reach out to 3 different vendors, Gulf Coast utility contractors, Davis Built, and I believe the other one was BCL. And Gulf Coast utility contractors is the lowest proposal, and that is below the $100,000 threshold per our purchasing policy, allows us for the 3 quotes versus engineered design and bid out.
Okay. All right. Any discussion among the commission?
Make a motion.
All right.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Got a motion and a second from Commissioner Tender and Commissioner Perno. Any discussion from the public on this item? Hearing none. City Manager.
Commissioner Tender?
Yes.
Commissioner Perno?
Yes.
Commissioner Peebles?
Yes.
Commissioner Warwick?
Yes.
Mayor Lowry?
Yes. Thank y'all for that. Item number 22, discussion and possible approval of Resolution 26-04-549, approving a piggyback contract for Atlantic Pipe Cured in Place Pipeline Contract. City Manager.
A resolution of the City of Lynn Haven, Florida, approving an agreement with Atlantic Pipe Services relating to pipe and manhole renewal and rehabilitation services for the city's stormwater utility at rated stated more fully in the body of the proposal. Mayor, this is a contract that was bid out in St. Johns County. It's to line the stormwater collection system piping and stormwater manholes. We've been working on this a couple years, actually. The first project we will have them do, we budgeted in the stormwater department to line the 36-inch corrugated metal pipe on Vermont Avenue, the 1100 and 1200 blocks. If you ride through there, you can see several different cave-ins throughout people's yards. It's time to rehab those pipes, and this contract will allow us that opportunity.
Okay. Any questions?
Mayor, I make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Ms. Tender. Any questions among the?
I'll second.
If not, we got a motion from Commissioner Tender, a second from Commissioner Warwick. Any discussion from the public on this one? Hearing none. I love the chuckles. Light hearts. City Manager, would you call the roll?
Commissioner Tender?
Yes.
Commissioner Warwick?
Yes.
Commissioner Peebles?
Yes.
Commissioner Perno?
Yes.
Mayor Lowry?
Yes, sir. All right, 5-0. Thank y'all for that. Item number 23, discussion and possible approval of Resolution 26-04-550, approving a piggyback contract for core and main water meter installation. City Manager.
A resolution of the City of Lynn Haven, Florida, approving an agreement with Core and Main LP relating to the purchase and installation of advanced metering infrastructure for the city's water and reclaimed water utilities at set unit prices. Mayor, we've actually been working on this one about 3 years as well. The City of Panama City Beach, mentioned in our last two strategic meetings was working on a contract for their meter conversion to the AMI, which is the radio reads. It's where the meter readers no longer have to go out and physically touch the meters to read them. It's all read via satellite. We've got about 2,500 or so water meters left. We are piggybacking off of the Beaches contract to be able to complete that project.
So it's basically some excess capacity that they have to help us knock down the installation of units we still have.
Not excess capacity they have, but we are able to utilize the bid that they submitted to be able to piggyback off of that for pricing and be able to utilize that for the installation.
All right. Any questions?
Make a motion to approve.
Second. I'll be glad when these are done. This is going to be great upgrade for the city. So,
Absolutely.
All right, so I got a motion by Commissioner Tender. I've got a second from Commissioner Warwick. Any questions from the public on this item? Hearing none, City Manager, would you call the roll?
Commissioner Tender?
Absolutely, yes.
Commissioner Warwick?
yes.
Commissioner Peebles?
Yes.
Commissioner Perno?
Yes.
Mayor Lowry?
Yes. Thank y'all for that. 24, discussion and possible approval of Resolution 2026-04-551, approving acceptance of the cybersecurity grant. City Manager.
A resolution of the City of Lynn Haven, Florida, approving a state-funded grant agreement with the Florida Department of Management Services for development and enhancement of a cybersecurity risk management program, authorizing the city manager to execute the agreement and providing an effective date. Mayor, this is a grant that River has been working on for about a year now. It's a non-monetary grant. It's a services grant. It's capabilities based. Rather than issuing funds directly to the city, the state of Florida will purchase the cybersecurity tools and services and then deploy them for the city's benefit at no cost. Significant cost savings once this is completed, delivering an enterprise level protection for city systems and data. So this is unrelated to the cyber issues we've had in the past, but it will help significantly with some issues we have and no cost to the city.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Nope, I beat you.
Second.
Commissioner Tender, I'm taking your motion as a second there. Commissioner Peebles beat you to the draw, ma'am.
No problem.
All right. Thank you for that. I have a motion from Commissioner Peebles, a second from Commissioner Tender. Any discussion among the audience on this point? Hearing none, City Manager, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Peebles?
Yes.
Commissioner Tender?
Yes.
Commissioner Perno?
Yes.
Commissioner Warwick?
Yes.
Mayor Lowry?
Yes, sir. Well, thank y'all for that. We, let's see, that was the one last one. Item number 25, discussion and possible approval of Resolution 2026-04-552, approving Florida Architects Additional Services City Hall Construction and Final Invoice.
A resolution of the City of Lynn Haven, Florida, approving additional services fee request from Florida Architects relating to the City Hall, Police /EOC project in the total amount of $27,916.25. And Mayor, this is just closing out the final invoice to Florida Architects for the design and post-design services of this building.
Any discussion or questions from the commission? If none, can I hear a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Thank you, ma'am. Do I have a second?
Second.
Got a motion and a second from Commissioner Tender and Commissioner Warwick. Any questions or discussion among the audience tonight? Hearing none, City Manager, would you call the roll?
Commissioner Tender?
Yes.
Commissioner Warwick?
Yes.
Commissioner Peebles?
Yes.
Commissioner Perno?
Yes.
Mayor Lowry?
Yes. Thank y'all for that. That brings us up to the final glide slope, if you will, for tonight. Public commentary, item number 26. We had no one sign up for tonight. We've had some very good discussions. Yeah, you believe that or not? It's a whole blank sheet, man. I would have framed that. Any additional? Come on up, Michelle.
I just want to inquire about the fundraising policy that's holding up the I Can Bike thing.
It was passed last meeting.
It was.
Yes, ma'am.
So I can start raising funds.
Yes, ma'am.
I've never seen you grin so big at a city commission meeting, just for the record. All right, any other general commentary tonight? If not, thank y'all for that. 27, Mayor's Report. It's been 3 months since I joined this team. I appreciate the opportunity to serve. I'm proud to serve with my 4 commissioner teammates. I really think we're going in the right direction. The whole tone and tenor has changed for the city, and I think in the better way, in a very good way. But we have a lot of work left to do. And proud to be here with y'all, and thank you all for engaging and participating with us. We all love Lynn Haven, and we all want to do the very best for our city that we possibly can. So that's where we're at today. And with that, I will start off on my left with Commissioner Perno, and we'll go to the right. Commissioner Perno, your report for tonight, sir.
I don't have much to report. The town hall was good. The 2 gentlemen in the back, thank you guys for participating with us and being there Saturday morning. I like the Chick-fil-A and the donuts a lot. They were good. I did get a call from a lady regarding the water main break, but I think we covered all that through the town hall and whatnot, and honestly believe that things are getting handled very nicely. Appreciate everything. I just want to thank everyone who comes to the meetings and our employees of the city and our first responders. And that's my report.
Thank you, sir. Before we go to Commissioner Peebles, thank you, Commissioner Perno, for reminding me. We have 2 of Lynn Haven's finest in the back. We have newly promoted Lieutenant Patrick Brogan and Captain Brian Blaylock. I want to say thank you both for being here tonight, and congratulations on both of your well-deserved promotions. We're proud of you. So with that, Commissioner Peebles, the floor is yours.
Thank you, sir. I think the reason that they keep bringing the gentleman back up in the back is because they were kind of the unofficial MVPs of that meeting, because they fielded at least 30 questions, it seemed like. So thank you for that and answering all those questions. So in case anyone here didn't know this, we had quite a few workshops over the past week or 2. We had a zoning workshop. I attended that via phone because my wife had just had surgery, so thanks for keeping her in your prayers. We had our town hall, which was great. We talked about that a lot. Before this commission meeting, we had the Living Shorelines workshop with the estuary program. And so just wanted to point out that we had those. Also, the tree giveaway was awesome. I've been getting trees from that tree giveaway for years now. One of them is like this thick. It's pretty awesome. It's great. Growing great. And so it's a great program. Try to promote it the best I can, because, a lot of our stormwater problems come because we don't have trees anymore. The tree canopy being gone and being able to suck up all the water has really been a factor for our stormwater issues. So if you can plant trees, please do. And then finally, something that I'd started that I think is going to be kind of fun is everyone knows, and if you talk to anyone that's not from Lynn Haven that lives in the area, they'll tell you that Lynn Haven is known for its parks. So I figured I'd do a little fun thing where we'll have a park tournament in the spirit of it being baseball, travel ball season with all the tournaments going on. So if you want to, every week I'm going to have a this or that type poll where you can vote on which park is your favorite in a bracket style. It doesn't have to be which park is the best, which park is objectively the best, or in your opinion the best. It could be you had a great memory of attending it when you were a child. It could be that you like taking your grandchildren to it. It could be, for example, we have the Memorial Park. It could be because it has a historic significance to you. Whatever that is, let's have that tournament. Right now, currently, Sheffield Park is beating Memorial Park, so if you really like Memorial Park, go vote for it. But I'll just tally the votes every week. We'll move along the bracket, and we'll have the championship, see which one wins. So,
awesome. Very creative, sir. Thank you. Commissioner Ward.
Don't have a whole lot. Last week I had the pleasure of watching 2 new police officers get sworn into Lynn Haven, and you just tell the atmosphere is totally different now. Our police department's in good hands. I'll just say that. So appreciate all that they do, and the fire department and all the staff. So we've come a long ways. I know we got a lot more to go, but I feel like we're going the right direction. So thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Certainly last tonight, but not least by any stretch, our Commissioner Caboose for tonight, Commissioner Tender.
Hey there, Mayor. I have a few things. The first thing I can't say enough good about a gentleman who works for the fire department, Ron Lamar. Ron is the inspector for businesses, and let me tell you something. I would have taken a whole different road, but this man has the patience of Job, and he's dealing with businesses that want, and he keeps trying to give and give and remain professional. So my hat goes off to him. We have a great fire department. But this guy, I'll tell you, if you ever have to do business with anybody who has anything to do with the laws in Lynn Haven, this is the man you want to deal with. Anyway, my hat's really off to him. The other thing that I wanted to bring to attention, we talked about this also in the city Saturday meeting, and that is the ball thing, the Lynn Haven ball, the whole thing, the players, the lineups, the way it's all run, and all of that. I know Sam is well into this. If he didn't just talk about it, I really couldn't hear him. But Sam's got a lot of kids who play ball, and I think we have a great program. We just need to maybe tweak it, if there's any way to tweak it so that it's fair to everybody. Other than that, I've been dealing with those issues, and particularly Mr. Lamar. If I ever get the opportunity to meet you, Mr. Lamar, please do. I have a lot of respect for you. Anyway, it's been a great meeting. Thank you so much for giving me to not be there tonight. I'm only going to be tied up a couple more days, and then I'll be back to work.
You rest.
Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am. You rest up, and I hope you feel better soon, Commissioner Tender.
Thank you. I will.
Yes, ma'am. We need to update this. CJ, this is just for you in the future. We need to update this. The interim needs to come off of the city manager's report on 29. So mine. But, okay, no worries. Permanent city manager, at least for the next few years, Mr. Lightfoot. What have you got for us tonight?
So, Mayor CJ will be reaching out, asking everyone some available dates for May so we can get budget workshops scheduled. So be looking for that, be thinking about that. And I'm going to ask her to reach out to you all so we can get those dates on the books. And also we can make this an agenda item for the next meeting, but just would kind of like to hear some feedback from the commission of some direction for James Rogers Park. We do have the money in the budget this year. However, as everyone knows, and Ms. Roman is about to give an update on our disaster recovery fund, it is in the negative. It will be coming out of the general fund, but we are getting a lot of questions from the public on whether or not the city is going to be moving forward with that project. Back in August, you all approved the final design, so it's ready to be bid out, but we just need some direction from the commission. So like I said, I can add that as an agenda item for the next meeting for discussion and kind of approval of which direction you all want to go, but we need some direction so that we can provide an answer to the residents who are inquiring about it.
I want to talk about this after Kiki gives us a debrief and at least have a first blush thoughts and discussion on it as we wrap up tonight. Table it for the next meeting.
I say,
Meeting.
yeah, I agree. Let's table it to the next meeting.
Kiki, for the first time tonight, has got a big old smile on her face. She's looked like she's at an Irish wake all night. Hey, thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening, ma'am.
Page 304, unfortunately, is incorrect, and I believe Ms. Rushing has given you a corrected checklist. If you have questions or comments, I'm happy to address them now. I also have additional copies for the public if they would like to see these as well. The error was made after the agenda was already published, and for confusion's sake, we didn't want to have two drafts out there. So, do you have any questions about the updated checklist? Right. So, as was mentioned, I'm going to give you a brief update on the Disaster Recovery Fund, Hurricane Michael, commonly shorthanded as Fund 101. We have had some information from FEMA. They are working on the insurance allocation. I believe that I've described this to you in the past, that FEMA is specifically assigning dollar amounts to each and every project. Based on those allocations, they have made some determinations. They are doing what they're calling unallocating $33 million. So in the past, I have told you that when everything shook out at the end, when we go through final closeout for Hurricane Michael, the city would be in the hole about $18 million. Unfortunately, I am adjusting that number. It's going to be closer to $22 to $23 million. The debt service does not change. We are still paying the bond till 2033 at $2,700,000 a year. Today, Fund 101 is in a negative cash position of approximately $900,000. That's today. I'm going to make a payment August 1st of about $2.3 million. So I'll be taking that out of general fund in August. Again, when everything is said and done, the general fund will be impacted by about $22 to $23 million. Further update is that FEMA's not done. They are reviewing additional projects. There may be additional adjustments to come, and I will keep you updated on that as that information comes along. Nothing has changed as far as the debt goes. The only thing that has changed is the receivable amount from the feds. That has diminished. Can I answer questions for you?
Do you anticipate any other sizable drops based on what's still outstanding?
I know for sure there's going to be one for about $1 million.
So we're realistically looking at a drop of about $6 million then in total?
It's possible. They're still reviewing, continue to review the insurance, and they're reviewing our application for legal fees. I'm not sure where they are with that. You might be aware that because of the partial government shutdown, FEMA is one of those agencies that is working on partial staffing. So I know that we do have money coming, but it's very slow in arriving, and they're attributing that to the partial government shutdown. I will keep you updated as news becomes available, but unfortunately, it's not going to get any better.
And that's why you've looked like you're at an Irish wake all evening. Bearer of bad news, but it's honest news. So,
well, I assume you'd rather know beforehand than after the fact.
Sure. Thank you for that. And just a side note on FEMA funding, it looks like the Senate is pushing forward with a reconciliation bill. It looks like just a national bit of news on FEMA funding. It looks like the Senate is pushing forward with a reconciliation bill to get that through that's not subject to the filibuster. And I believe what I read in the news yesterday was they're looking to fund all of DHS for the next 3 years. So if that gets funded in the next, FEMA as part of DHS gets funded in the next couple of weeks, fully funded. I don't know how quickly that would trickle down to what we're waiting on here in terms of audits or reviews left.
There's about $700,000 that's ready to go, and just someone needs to pull the lever on it. So I would imagine that that would happen rather quickly. Everything else will go in government, federal government time.
At the speed of Christmas or molasses, right? Gotcha. All right, any questions from the commission for Ms. Kiki? No? All right.
Thank you.
Well, with that, our true caboose tonight is our city attorney, Mr. Jackson. Do you have anything for us tonight?
I have spoken way too much tonight, and I have no report.
Well, for the record, we appreciate you, Mr. Jackson. Ladies and gentlemen, I really appreciate y'all tonight. I'm sorry we couldn't get you out of here in a minute or an hour 16 like last time, but truly thank you for writing this out with us, for being part of this. Y'all have a great night.